And yes, let's fellowship. Let's bite the word together. So now it comes at a point where the children of Israel were under so much oppression from the Midianites, together with the Amaleks, who will just come to ruin everything that they were doing for their livelihoods. And at this time, there was just so much oppression, and apparently they had been doing wrong. So God abandoned them to their devices, and the oppressor arose, man. The oppressor came, and he really, really stepped on them. So they were crying out. But God told them through a word of prophecy that, you see, I am the one who took you from captivity in Egypt. And I told you not to fear these people, but you chose not to obey. So now you find yourselves here. And then God sends an angel, or shall we call him an angel of the Lord, appears to Gideon and tells him he's a mighty man of valor. And Gideon is wondering where that is coming from. But God is intending to use Gideon in that situation to deliver the nation from that oppression, that kind of oppression that was happening to them. So Gideon, of course, says, my family, my name even. And God confirms that it's truly him who has called him. Yeah? Perhaps that's saying that he qualifies the called. He didn't look the part, but God qualified him. And so God confirms his calling on Gideon, that he's going to be a deliverer against these people. And in the following chapter, we see how Gideon now is charged up, and he calls up his community and indeed the nation to rally behind him in this course. But then the Lord finds that there are too many, they are numbering thousands. And so he tells them, those who are afraid to go, and 20,000 did, left with 10,000. And God still, shall I call it, chujas them. He chujas them again. And Gideon ends up with 300 men for his glory. Because had they gone in their numbers, God would not receive the glory. It would appear as though the nation itself had done this marvelous work. And so, with the 300 men, and in the power of his might, that the angel of the Lord charged Gideon to go, Gideon goes, and lo and behold, these men who are in their territory start fighting one another. And of course, the victory is handed to the man, Gideon, who became a judge, right, at that time. So we are seeing here how it all came down to worship, because in verse 6, actually in chapter 6, in chapter 6, there's an interesting conversation there that God has with Gideon. Well, more like an instruction. And he says from verse 24, so Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, the Lord is peace. To this day, it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. That same night, the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished and the Asherah pole beside it cut down, and the second bull sacrificed to the newly built altar. And of course, they are perplexed and they are wondering, so who did this? Then they find out it's Gideon, and they say, now let's do away with Gideon. But his father Joash says, this Baal guy, he cannot defend himself, that he needs defending from his adherents. So when you look at how God instituted the right kind of worship, why it comes down to worship is that in our lives today, there could be so many things that we've surrounded ourselves with. There could be so many things that we are worshiping, perhaps even unknown to us. It might not have struck a chord with Gideon, who used to go about and he was asking the angel of the Lord, how is it that you're saying that I have found favor with God, but it seems as though God has abandoned me? And yet you're saying that you will give me victory. How is that even possible? But there was something that was standing amiss, and that was the place of worship. And even in society, if you check a society that has gone away from God and has set up objects of worship, that it is now worshiping those things, they stand to lose every time. Even at a personal level, in your walk with the Lord, just in case something has come up and it has taken your time, it has taken your affection, your whatever it is that you have decided, or maybe unknown to you, it has taken the place of God in worship. That thing dominates you. And that thing makes you, as a believer, not to even experience breakthrough. So it comes down to worship every time. When we look around, how did Gideon get to be used? After that Baal altar had been put down and the grove that was beside it, the Asherah pole that was beside it, it also was brought down. Therefore, it matters who we worship. It matters how we worship. How we worship matters. Whom we worship matters. We need to ask ourselves tonight, am I worshiping the living God? Is there anything in my life today that has taken the place of God? What is that thing? Does it have a name? Do I know it? Do I not? Tell the Lord in prayer and ask him to take it aside. As Gideon took it down, but he just didn't take it down. He also brought up the altar of the Lord. So whatever we are taking down, we're supposed to bring up the altar of the Lord. Amen. So let us be encouraged that it all comes down to worship.